It was a Tuesday afternoon, the kind where the sun slanted just right through the old maple tree in the front yard of Art Jenkins' Craftsman Bungalow in Maple Creek, Ohio. Art, a high school history teacher with a penchant for antique roses and quiet evenings, savored these moments. His life, while predictable, was a sanctuary, a meticulously cultivated space where the biggest drama was usually whether his hybrid tea roses would bloom before the end of May. For Art, his home wasn't just a house. It was a fortress of solitude, a place where the echoes of teenage chatter about forgotten historical dates faded into blessed silence. It was his peace, until the silver Lexus arrived. The first time Art saw the sleek, dark SUV nosed into his single-car driveway, he barely registered it. Maybe a delivery? A neighbor's guest momentarily confused? He gave it the benefit of the doubt, as any good neighbor would. He'd simply park on the street for a few minutes while he brought in his groceries. No big deal. That was the first mistake most of us make, extending grace where none is deserved. We assume good intentions, hoping for peace, only to find our kindness interpreted as weakness. But then, the Lexus became a fixture, not just occasionally, but almost daily. Sometimes it was just for a second, as Veronica Thorne, his next-door neighbor, would breezily explain, waving a perfectly manicured hand. Veronica was, in Maple Creek terms, new money. All sharp angles and designer labels, a stark contrast to Art's comfortable, worn corduroys and the quiet hum of his lawnmower. She'd flash a tight, dismissive smile, implying her fleeting inconvenience was far more important than Art's daily routine. She was always just dropping something off, or running inside for a minute. Each time, Art would swallow his annoyance, offer a polite nod, and park his trusty sedan on the street. He'd leave carefully folded notes on her windshield, brief and polite, asking if she wouldn't mind leaving his driveway clear. The notes always disappeared, and the Lexus always returned. This constant disregard chipped away at Art, piece by agonizing piece. It's a subtle erosion, like water slowly wearing down stone. You might experience this in your own life, that colleague who always forgets to do their part, forcing you to pick up the slack. The friend who constantly borrows money and never repays. Each instance feels too small to cause a fuss, yet the cumulative effect is soul-crushing. You start questioning yourself. Am I overreacting? Is it really that big of a deal? Veronica made sure Art asked himself those questions every single day. She weaponized his politeness, turning his personal space into her own convenient, temporary parking lot. The true breaking point arrived on a particularly brutal Tuesday. Art had spent the day navigating a tempestuous substitute teacher, correcting a mountain of essays on the Treaty of Versailles, and then inexplicably found himself locked out of his own classroom for an hour. He pulled onto his street, utterly exhausted, craving nothing more than the quiet solace of his living room and a cold glass of sweet tea. But as he turned into his street, his blood ran cold. There it was, Veronica's Lexus, not just in his driveway, but angled diagonally, blocking not only his parking spot, but the entire mouth of his garage. It was a brazen, almost intentional act of defiance. There was no one in sight. Art took a deep, shaky breath, the kind that tastes like defeat and simmering rage. He slammed his car into park on the street, grabbed his phone and took a picture, a silent testament to the daily invasion. Then, he walked to Veronica's door, his knuckles rapping harder than he intended. Veronica, impeccably dressed as always, opened the door with an air of mild annoyance, as if Art were interrupting a vital congressional hearing, not bothering her during her afternoon tea. "Art," she drawled, drawing out his name like an inconvenience. "What's wrong?" Her tone dripped with feigned concern, but her eyes held a predatory glint. She knew exactly why he was there. Art gestured toward his driveway, his voice remarkably steady despite the tremor in his hands. "Your car. It's in my spot again, and it's blocking my garage." Veronica blinked, feigning confusion. "Oh, was it? I was just, well, you know, I had a delivery, and the driver needed room to back out." She offered a tight, dismissive smile, as if that explanation should end the conversation. "You don't mind, do you?" Art's voice, though quiet, was firm. "I do, actually. I need you to stop parking in my driveway." Veronica sighed dramatically, rolling her eyes. "Well, I live right next door, Art. It's not like I'm parking on some stranger's property." "You're parking on mine," Art retorted, his jaw clenching. She scoffed. "Seriously, are you really that bothered by a car sitting there for a few minutes? It's not a big deal." "It's not a few minutes, Veronica. It keeps happening," Art said, crossing his arms. "And I need it to stop." She let out a sharp, dismissive laugh. All right, no need to get all worked up. I'll move it." She did, that time, but it was a hollow victory. Over the next few weeks, the pattern continued. He'd come home to find her car exactly where it shouldn't be. If he left a note, it disappeared. If he knocked on her door, she suddenly wasn't home. This wasn't just about a parking spot anymore. It was about respect, about boundaries, and about one person's flagrant disregard for another's personal space. Art was learning a harsh truth. Some people simply do not understand no until there are consequences, and Veronica Thorne was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Art, a man who believed in order and process, tried every conventional route first. He'd left one last, firmly worded note on Veronica's windshield, a final plea for civility. "Do not park here again." He also spent a frustrating morning navigating the labyrinthian bureaucracy of the Maple Creek Homeowners Association, HOA. Their response was exactly what you'd expect from an organization designed more for maintaining lawn aesthetics than resolving actual disputes. "Sir, unless there's physical damage to your property, we really don't get involved in neighbor disputes," a bored-sounding woman on the phone told him. "Have you tried speaking with her?" Art sighed, explaining he'd been doing little else for weeks. Her solution? "Well, we can send a courtesy email, but that's about it." A courtesy email. Right. That would really teach Veronica. This is a common agonizing moment for anyone caught in a similar bind. You try to play by the rules, expecting fairness, only to find the system bogged down by red tape or unwilling to act. It's in these moments that you realize, sometimes, you have to create your own solution. Art wasn't going to waste his energy arguing with a powerless HOA. If they wouldn't do anything, he would. That evening, the moment of truth arrived. Art pulled onto his street, and there it was, brazen as ever, Veronica's gleaming Lexus. Not just in his driveway, but parked at an arrogant angle, almost daring him. The note was gone. She wasn't even trying to be subtle anymore. A slow burn of righteous fury replaced Art's usual calm. Enough was enough. He pulled his own car onto the street, picked up his phone and dialed a local towing company. His instructions were simple. "I need this car gone." The tow truck arrived in less than 15 minutes, a swift, silent angel of justice. The driver, a no-nonsense type, glanced at the Lexus, then at Art. "She's parked in your driveway?" Art confirmed, producing his property deed, which he'd neatly placed in his glove compartment. He'd come prepared. "All right," the driver nodded. "Let's hook her up." Within minutes, Veronica's luxury SUV was hoisted into the air, its wheels locked in place, looking ridiculously undignified. Art stood with his arms crossed, a quiet satisfaction spreading through him as the truck rumbled away, carrying her car into the fading sunset. He had no idea what kind of explosion awaited him, but he knew one thing. The rules of engagement had just changed. He didn't have to wait long. About an hour later, just as Art was settling in for his peaceful evening, a thunderous bam, bam, bam rattled his front door. Veronica. Her face, usually composed, was a mask of livid rage. Her blonde bob was slightly askew, and she wore flip-flops with silk pajama pants. "Where is my car?" she shrieked, her phone clutched in her hand. Art took his time. He stood up, stretched, then leisurely opened the door. "Oh, you mean the one that was illegally parked in my driveway?" he calmly asked, tilting his head. "Don't play games with me, Art. Where is my car?" He shrugged, casually. "Towed?" She stared, mouth agape, pure disbelief warming with incandescent fury. You did what?" "You heard me," Art said, his voice even. "You wouldn't stop parking in my driveway, so I had it removed. Simple as that." Veronica let out a sharp, hysterical laugh. "Oh, you are gonna pay for this. Do you know who I am? I'm on the HOA board. I have connections. Art." Art gave her a slow, deliberate blink. "Good for you. Your car's at Maple Creek Towing off Highway 78. Have a good night." And with that, he gently but firmly shut the door. She wasn't done. For the next 10 minutes, Veronica ranted and raved on his porch, switching between outrage and thinly veiled threats. She even called the police, but when the officers arrived, they barely gave her the time of day. "You had her car towed from your own property, sir?" the officer asked Art. "Yep," he confirmed, showing his deed. The officer glanced at the document, then turned back to Veronica. "Man, he's within his rights. If you want your car back, you'll need to pay the impound fee." The way Veronica's face turned a shade of crimson, Art would have paid good money to frame that moment. But if Art thought that getting her car towed would send a clear message, he was gravely mistaken. If anything, it ignited Veronica's true nature. She didn't get the message, she doubled down. Her retaliation started small, passive-aggressive jabs that were more annoying than anything. First, a note on his door, written in bright red marker. "This is a community. We should all be more considerate of our neighbors." Art tossed it straight into the recycling bin. Then came the HOA complaints. A letter arrived in his mailbox a few days later claiming his beloved antique rose bushes were in violation of community aesthetics. Art laughed out loud. The same bushes that had been there for 20 years were suddenly a problem. Another letter followed. His recycling bins were left out too long. Then another. His mailbox paint was fading. By the fourth letter, Art wasn't even mad anymore. He was impressed. She was putting in real effort. But the worst part? She started calling community security on him. One evening, Art was simply watering his rose garden when a white security SUV pulled up, lights flashing. A tall, middle-aged officer stepped out, adjusting his belt like he was about to defuse a bomb. "You live here, sir?" he asked. Art frowned. "Yeah, why?" The officer cleared his throat. "We received a call about some, suspicious activity." Art let out a slow breath. "Suspicious." He turned his head, and sure enough, there she was. Veronica Thorne, standing on her porch, arms crossed, pretending to be oblivious. Art gave the officer a dry look. "So, watering my lawn is suspicious now?" The officer had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Look, sir, Art cut him off. "I already know who called. Tell her to find a new hobby." The officer sighed, nodded, and walked back to his car. "And Veronica?" She smiled, a triumphant, smug little grin. Art wasn't having it. He marched straight up to her porch. "Veronica." She blinked, feigning innocence. "Oh, everything okay, Art? I saw security here. Hope nothing serious happened." He folded his arms. "You know damn well why they were here." Veronica gasped dramatically. "Art, no need to be rude. I was just concerned. We have a duty to watch out for our neighborhood, don't we?" She wanted a reaction. She wanted him to lose his temper, to give her something she could use against him. So, Art did the one thing she didn't expect. He smirked. Calm, controlled, amused. "I'm done playing games, Veronica." His voice was low, steady. "I gave you more chances than you deserved, but you keep pushing. So let's see what happens when I push back." For the first time, she looked unsure, and she should have been, because the next time Veronica parked in his driveway, Art wasn't just going to tow her car. He was going to make sure it hurt. And Veronica had no idea what was coming. Art didn't have to wait long for Veronica to make her next move. Just 1 week later, on a peaceful Saturday afternoon, he pulled into his street, whistling to himself after a satisfying workout at the gym. And there it was. Veronica's sleek Lexus, parked dead center in his driveway, not only blocking his car, but his entire garage. It was audacious, disrespectful, and this time, infuriatingly strategic. His sister, her husband, and his beloved niece and nephew were due to arrive any minute for their quarterly family cookout. He could almost hear the excited chatter of the kids, already picturing their disappointment when they couldn't pull into his driveway. Art sat in his car for a moment, just staring. Then, a slow smile spread across his face. He put his car in park, stepped out and pulled out his phone. "Hey, this is Art Jenkins," he said, his voice calm, almost cheerful. "I need a car towed. Same location as last time." The dispatcher chuckled. "Let me guess. Same car, too?" "You got it," Art confirmed. "We'll be there in 15, she said. Art smiled. This time, Veronica was going to learn a lesson that echoed through the quiet streets of Maple Creek. He grabbed his folding chairs from the trunk and settled comfortably on his porch, arms crossed, waiting. Minutes later, the tow truck rolled up, fast and efficient. These guys weren't playing around. The driver stepped out, adjusting his gloves. "We doing this again?" he asked, a knowing smirk on his face. "Looks like it," Art said, gesturing to the car. The guy shook his head. "Some people never learn." With zero hesitation, the driver expertly hooked up Veronica's Lexus and began lifting it onto the truck. That's when she came storming out. "Stop! What are you doing?" Veronica screeched, her voice piercing, like she just caught someone robbing her house. Art leaned back in his chair, calmly sipping from his water bottle, like he had all the time in the world. The tow driver didn't even look at her. He was already strapping the wheels down. Veronica marched up to Art, eyes blazing. "You called the tow truck again?" Arch an eyebrow. "You parked in my driveway again." Her hands balled into fists. "I have guests over. There was no street parking." Art tilted his head. "Not my problem." She let out a frustrated growl. "You're being petty, Art. I told you I would have moved it." He sighed, casual, relaxed. "See, here's the thing, Veronica. You've told me that before, and yet here we are." Her face turned a shade of red that bordered on a medical emergency. "You don't understand what you're doing," she hissed. "I have connections. I can make things very difficult for you." Art actually laughed, a genuine, full-bellied laugh. "Oh, Veronica," he said, shaking his head. "I don't think you understand what's happening here." He gestured toward the tow truck. "Your car. It's already gone." She whirled around, and sure enough, the Lexus was halfway down the street. She let out a piercing shriek. "You're going to regret this," she snapped. Art stood up slowly, dusting off his jeans. "No, Veronica, you are." He turned and walked inside just as his sister's minivan pulled up, followed by his niece and nephew, who burst out of the car, laughing and yelling, "Uncle Art!" As his family greeted him at the door, laughing, hugging, catching up, Veronica stood on her porch, alone, simmering in her rage. The public humiliation witnessed by his family was just the beginning. The second tow should have been the end of it, but Veronica, she wasn't the type to take a loss quietly. She wanted revenge, and this time She wanted the entire neighborhood to watch. By Monday morning, Art was the villain. At least, that's what Veronica wanted people to believe. Her clique on the HOA board sent out a community-wide email about recent neighborly disputes that had escalated unnecessarily. The wording was carefully crafted, passive-aggressive, but vague, making it seem like Art was the one causing trouble. Then, the flyers started appearing. Yes, flyers. Printed, laminated, and taped to every mailbox on the street. Is this the kind of community we want? Do we tow our neighbors instead of talking to them? It was laughable. Art yanked the one off his own mailbox and shook his head. She was really doing all this over a driveway? But here's the unexpected twist, the beautiful unraveling. Nobody was buying it. Veronica had pushed her luck one too many times. That morning, Art's phone lit up with messages. Neighbors, parents from the school, even a few HOA members who weren't in Veronica's pocket. Hey man, saw the flyer. What the hell is wrong with her? We all know she's a nightmare. She tried to fine me $200 0 cents last year for a wind chime. If she parks in your driveway again, I'll split the tow fee with you. Art chuckled at that last one. The best part? He didn't even have to defend himself. People had seen Veronica's antics for years. The unnecessary complaints, the petty fines, the power trips. And now that she was embarrassing herself so publicly, they were turning on her. The quiet resentment had finally found its voice. This is the power of collective experience. When one person stands up, others realize they aren't alone, and the silent majority can finally speak. Then came the HOA meeting. Normally, Art didn't bother going, considering it a waste of time. But this time, he had a front row seat. He walked in arms crossed and took a seat right across from Veronica. She refused to look at him. The meeting started with the usual nonsense. Budget talk, landscaping updates, a reminder about trash bin placement. Then, one of the board members cleared his throat. We need to address a complaint that's been filed regarding misuse of private property. Art leaned back, waiting. Veronica sat up straighter, a smug look on her face. She was ready to play the victim. But the board member kept going. The complaint is against Veronica Thorne. Art didn't even try to hide his grin. Veronica's head snapped toward the board. Excuse me? A few members shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a woman in her 60s, who had always seemed intimidated by Veronica, sighed. Veronica, we've had multiple reports of you harassing residents and using HOA resources for personal grievances. Veronica's jaw dropped. That's ridiculous. I'm the one being harassed. But the board member kept reading. We've reviewed several complaints, including misuse of security calls, unauthorized HOA communications, and retaliatory actions against residents. Veronica turned to the board, eyes wide. You're taking his side? The woman shook her head. We're taking the side of the community. Veronica opened her mouth, but she had nothing to say. She looked around the room, searching for support, but found none. She wasn't in control anymore, and for the first time she knew it. But Art wasn't done watching her fall. Veronica was losing control, and she knew it. For years, she'd ruled over the Maple Creek neighborhood like a self-appointed queen, using the HOA to bend the rules to her will. But now, her influence was slipping through her manicured fingers, and she was desperate to grab onto anything to get it back. That's when she made her final, most desperate mistake. 2 days after the tumultuous HOA meeting, Art was pulling into his driveway when he noticed something strange. His recycling bins were missing. Not tipped over, not moved to the side, just gone. He stepped out of his car, scanning the street, and then he saw them. Behind Veronica's house, stacked neatly, almost proudly, like she'd taken them on purpose. Art actually laughed out loud. This woman had tried emails, flyers, security calls, and HOA fines, and now she had resorted to stealing trash cans. It was pathetic. But Art wasn't going to let it slide. He pulled out his phone, snapped a few clear photos, the timestamps would be crucial, then calmly walked up to her front door. Knock, knock. No answer. Art knocked again, harder. After a long pause, the door cracked open, and there she was. Veronica looked different. No smug expression, no fake smile. Just tired, like she already knew she had lost. Art held up his phone. You want to tell me why my recycling bins are in your backyard? She crossed her arms. I don't know what you're talking about. Art let out a low chuckle. Veronica, I have pictures. Let's not do this. She stared at him, silent. You've lost, he said simply. You can't find me. You can't call security. The HOA isn't backing you, and now you're out here stealing trash cans like a crazy person. Veronica's eyes flashed with something sharp, but she didn't speak. Art took a step closer. Calm, steady, unbothered. You've spent months trying to make my life hell, but now, he gestured to her quiet, dark house, seems like you're the one who's miserable. She swallowed hard, her lips pressing together. Then, without another word, she shut the door. Art smiled. That was probably the smartest thing she'd done all year. But there was still one last piece of justice left to serve. The very next morning, Art didn't hesitate. He sat down and filed an official, detailed complaint with the HOA. This time, it wasn't about a parking dispute. It was against Veronica Thorne herself. The evidence was overwhelming thanks to Art's meticulous documentation and the sudden outpouring of support from other residents. Harassment reports from multiple neighbors, false security calls, unauthorized HOA communications, and now photographic evidence of theft. By the end of the week, the HOA board had no choice but to take action. The quiet queen of Maple Creek was dethroned. Veronica Thorne was formally removed from the HOA board. Her power gone. Her control over the neighborhood over. And the best part? She never parked in Art's driveway again. Because some people only learn when they have everything taken away. Thank you for being with us to the end of this story. We hope Journey of Art Jenkins has resonated with you, empowering you to reflect on your own experiences and the world around you. If this story moved you, please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new episodes of impactful storytelling. Share this video with your friends and family. Together, we can continue to bring attention to important topics and inspire positive change. Check out the other videos on our channel for more thought-provoking stories that aim to uplift, educate, and empower.